Hey, it's Coach Taylor from SmarterTeamTraining.com. I've said on this show many, many times to use social media to enhance your networking. I'm going to talk to you about a guy named Fred Eaves today that I have on the line right now. And we went back and forth real quick on Twitter. Just something got posted and shared, and long story short, we got on an email, and then we got on the phone earlier this week. I mean, this episode has happened within about a 4 or 5 day window for those that follow this show regularly. Sometimes these episodes are scheduled, etc. I just had an opening this week, and I said, Fred, would you mind just spending time during the week, whenever you have time? And football season's starting up with him, so if anybody's in this field that works in football, they know how intense that environment gets. He's finding time on a Friday afternoon. It's roughly 4 o'clock here, Eastern time, and he could be home. And he's willing to just spend 35, 45, 50 maybe minutes with me and talk about a couple of questions that I have. So, Fred, man, I'm looking forward, obviously, to talking with you. I know we talked a little bit before the show got started here. I don't know much about you as far as your background in the field and those types of things. I did a little bit of research, but I really wanted to be pretty open to the conversation we're going to have. But I do know that your reputation is an outstanding person and coach. And so I'm looking forward to just having a general conversation here with you about strength training, my man.
Oh, man, thanks, Rob. I appreciate it, man. Likewise. My name's Fred Eaves. You know, my title here at Battleground Academy in Franklin, Tennessee, I'm the Director of Wellness and Athletic Performance. So, you know, I like to joke about that and say, yeah, that's a fancy title for I'm the strength conditioning coach here. We have a lot of other things tied into that, but that's really what it is. You know, my background, you know, I spent some collegiate time at the University of Tennessee, UT Chattanooga, and LSU. And worked with Gail Hatch down in Louisiana, and I've been mainly a high school guy. I kind of always knew that's what I wanted to do, and, you know, I knew I needed to go to the collegiate level to be able to get the experience I needed. I always joked that I kind of came in right before the internet generation. It was kind of hard to find material, so it was back in the old days a bit. You had to go get with people and let them teach you and show you how to do the deal. So I think there's something still to be said for that. You know, this is a very apprenticeship-based field, and I think there's a lot to be said for that. You'll learn way more out of that than you ever will a book, in my opinion. Not that I don't do my end on research, but that's kind of my background of where I got started. You know, I really didn't know that I wanted to be a strength coach in the beginning. I thought I just wanted to teach and be a football coach. And quickly I found a love for it when I kind of fell into a part-time strength conditioning job. I found a love and knew exactly what I wanted to do from that point on.
Fred, my man, I know we haven't talked much about, again, you as a person or you as a coach or even anything deeper than that, to be very fair. So one of the big questions that I always have for people, where does your passion for this field come from? Again, you're a high school guy. I mean, what got you excited about being involved in that environment?
Yeah, Rob, it's really about the kids, man. It's unbelievable. You know, it's kind of a tough day for me. A kid that I really got to work with briefly at the high school I was at previous to here in Hopkinsville, Kentucky, was killed in an accident out on the football field moving some equipment yesterday. And you know, I've kind of struggled all day today because it's not just lip service about how we feel about our kids and they're our extended family, and really it is everything I do is for someone else, and when it comes to what I do during the school day. You know, I've had a conversation with our kids this week. It's the first week of school, and we've been talking about, you know, we have people who come and visit us. They'll hear a podcast here and there. They'll see something I write, and I remind them that stuff's all about them, that we don't do that stuff without their hard work, their effort, their enthusiasm for what we do each day. And it's really not about me or my staff. It's all about our kids. And ultimately our goal is, and I've said this before, is we're trying to help them be the best people that they can possibly become. And that's very individual for some kids. You know, some kids, I got a call today from a parent about, hey, my son's really struggling with confidence. And you know, what can you do to help him? He really looks up to you. He really enjoys wellness class, and I think it's important that he's in there. What can you do to help him? So that's really my overreaching philosophy of what we do, and it's what I impart to our staff, that if it's about you, you're not going to be very successful. That this needs to be about, it's a service industry, in my opinion, no matter whether it's at the high school level, collegiate level, pro level. It's a service industry, and you need to take that approach to it if you really want to be successful long term. And I think if you take those steps and do those things with your athletes and with the people you come into contact with, there's just no way you're not going to be successful.
Obviously, our thoughts and prayers go out to the young man that you're referring to there, and I'm sorry to hear of your loss there, big man. that's a sad thing and a tough thing to go through there. So moving on, hopefully in a positive light with this conversation, though, if someone new comes to your training facility, and I know you guys run an outstanding program there because, again, we talked a little bit about that beforehand. I mean, how do you approach someone that's new? If they're spending one semester with you, one half a year, one just their freshman year, and then they move on. I mean, how do you go about spending just the first period of time with them at your facility? Are you a functional movement screen guy? Are you a test at all costs kind of guy? Are you a run them until we find out something cardiovascular going on? Or just walk me through that process if you wouldn't mind.
Sure. When we get a new athlete in or a new student in our program, we're going to start everything what we call our Wildcat program, which would be a derivative of Joe Ken's Block Zero. What's what most people are doing now. So we're going to screen them through there, and we like FMS. Depends on what time of the year if we can get that in, because I have very, very short time with our athletes. I have 30 minutes 3 to 4 times a week of actual work with them. So when we're in that setting of the school year, we'll use something from the basketball strength coach at Georgia Tech, a guy named Mike Bewley. It's a dynamic functional movement screen. And it's really, really cool, and it's really, really efficient as far as time goes, because I think we all know the FMS can take some time, especially I have around 185, 186 kids in class during the day. So we'll use that during that time of the year and kind of see where they're going, see how they move. Ultimately, early on, I'm going to look at how they move. I'm going to see where they can move their own body weight, what they can do. But everyone starts out in our Wildcat program, whether you are an 8th grader coming into 9th grade or whether we've gotten like 4 transfers this year. You're a junior in high school transfer, because I've got to evaluate you from the beginning and see where you're at and see where we need to take you. I'm also going to look at what the athletic trainer, what the medical staff gives me on as far as history goes and things of that nature, kind of what that looks like for them. But our philosophy there is, before you move into our weight room setting, you've got to be able to move your own body weight. You've got to, if I'm looking at a bare minimum of what we look at with our kids.
I know you get a chance to work with a bunch of different sports, and again, a bunch of different age groups for that matter, so I'm sure they're all maturing at different ages from a training age and a chronological age type standpoint. Are there exercises that you avoid or make sure that are in your program? And do me a favor, walk me through what has worked best for you and the young athletes you get a chance to work with.
Sure. With exercises, to me, I go back to a lot of what, Louis Simmons, when he talks about bar speed or whatever you're trying to do, it's a lot about intent. Sometimes I think it's not as much the exercise, how the exercise is applied. So I don't know if there's actually anything that I stress to avoid. There are certain movements that I may not favor over another movement. And with our kids, it's all about simple to more complex and giving them what they can handle. We're not going to start day one with this kid's going to start with the power clean, or this kid's going to start with a back squat. We're going to have a regression. We're going to have a baseline exercise, and we're going to have regressions from that and progressions from that. So on that end, it's we want to make sure with everything with us, our philosophy is technique, velocity, load, how good, how fast, and then how much when we're breaking into simple terms, because I'm dealing with high school kids, so we're trying not to give them too much to think about. But we're going to block everyone into different programs. So we'll have our Wildcat program, then we'll have our white program, gray, gold, and blue. So during those different blocks of training that they're in, so if you're looking at how do we do that, it's pretty much is 8th to 9th grade, they're in the Wildcat program. 9th grade, most of the year, they're in our white, 10th gray, 11th grade gold, and then senior year blue. So we add some variety. We also do our teaching progressions in that as well. So I may start with, let's say if we're looking at the power clean, he may start with trap bar deadlift, learn to pull from the floor, and when he's in the white block. And then in the gray block, he may do trap bar clean pull. And then when he goes into the gray block, he's doing an actual power clean. And then in the blue block, it'll just be some changes in periodization from there. And of course, throughout we're a tier system school. That's what we use. So I'm building other Olympic exercises into that. I'm building other squat, other the variety of movements, different auxiliary assistance movements in there to support those major core lifts that we do. But we definitely want our kids to be able to, they've got to be able to trap bar deadlift. They've got to be able to squat efficiently, depending on, we use different squats for different levels. And they've got to be able to do some type of press. We've gone away from, we're all strictly neutral press now, but all Swiss bars and log bars. We don't do any regular bench press with our kids anymore. I look at it and I say, well, my kids are athletes, and we're not doing that for sport. If I can put their shoulder in a better position, we're going to do that. So that's kind of how we block our kids into different programs and make sure that we're teaching everything age appropriate, because you're right, I may have that sometimes I have that sophomore who's 15 years old who hasn't hit puberty yet. I may keep him in that block of training until I start seeing that change in him physically to move him from gray to gold, and make sure that, and once again, it comes down to some kids will never leave the gray program, depending on what their sport is and things like that and what the needs of the sport are.
One big part of strength conditioning that I think is a question that people just don't ask: how do you determine the weight being used during each set? And that could be for the clean, the jerk, the squat. It also could be involved with, I don't care if it's bicep curls, bench presses, and pull-ups. I mean, are you a percentage-based guy, a rep range guy? I mean, walk me through what it takes to be in your program.
Sure, definitely. We are a progressive overload program for the most part. Our seniors will maybe go on some different stuff depending on what type of athlete that is. So we use an APRE method that I think most people are becoming familiar with at this point. We use percentages as a guide for us, but we're not stuck to that. We're hitting 90% for 2 or 3 that day, or 95% for 2, because when I'm dealing with a high school athlete, I'm dealing with possibly the most variable athlete that you deal with. They are up and down. Their weights are all over the place, depending on where they're at that day from a physiological standpoint. So when I look at that kid, I want to train, when I go back to my, we connected over the Gail Hatch thing. When I go back to my Gail Hatch training, I think a lot about the Bulgaria method and training to the best for that day. And that's kind of what we try to do, depending on where we're at in our cycle and what we're doing. So we use a modified version of what Brian Mann put a book out on, APRE method, which was modified from super training. And it's worked very well for our kids. So our kids will come in, and we'll have either, and I've modified it a bit just for us. You know how it is, like Coach House says, absorb, modify, and apply. We're going to go, when we go with our stuff, it's going to be APRE 10, APRE 5, and APRE 3. All right, so for APRE 10, of course, we're going to do our warm-up. For us, that's going to be a kettlebell swing, kettlebell goblet squat. Because once again, I said I'm on very limited time with them. Now, it's a lot different in the summer when I have 2 hours with them, because we're going to do about 45, 50 minutes on the turf before we ever get inside. But when we're in our class day, we're going to hit that quick kettlebell warm-up. We'll go on APRE 10, we're 12 reps at 50% of a 10-rep max. Then we'll go 10 reps at 75% of a 10-rep max. And this is all estimation. Like I said, these are guides for us. Then for a neurological adaptation, and so I'm not jumping from 75% to a failure set, we're going to work 2 reps at 85% of a 10 RM. Then we're going to work 2 reps at 95% of a 10 RM. Then our set's going to be reps to failure at 10 RM. After that, that's the next set. Then from there, they've got a chart that they look at. So let's say that, all right, I'm doing APRE 10 on a back squat, and I did 225 for 8 reps. I didn't get to the 10. So I go down to my chart, and it tells me 7 to 8 reps, I decrease 0 to 5 pounds. So I'll take it down 5 pounds from there, go to my next set, and then my last set will be maybe I hit 225 for 9, and I record that number for them. So I'm always looking to get a snapshot of where they're at for that day. I'm not super concerned with I'm looking for long-term trends with them. And we're going to record those times every time. Like I said, we're tier systems, so we're going to record that top-tier exercise every time we lift. But we're looking for long-term trends. I don't lose my mind if a kid's down 10 pounds the next week. And we tell them, I always tell the kids, hey, let me worry about where you're at. You just do what you've got for that day. Because if you look, we've gotten a lot more into, monitoring, and I've been working with a company called Conduct to do some more, to kind of put that together in a platform for our kids. Because, man, our kids don't, I'm telling you, the high school athlete, it's unbelievable what they don't eat, what they don't drink, and how little sleep they get. I'm sure you're dealing with this as well. They just don't take very good care of themselves. So we're trying to make them a lot more conscious of that. So we found APRE to be very good, because I have our guys for short spurts before they get a break. I may get them 6, 8, 9 weeks, and they get some type of break. So it's been very, very good for us. And, we're going down the list at APRE 5. It would go kind of the same method as that APRE 10, and then the same thing for the APRE 3. And we just use that adjustment table to kind of adjust where we're at for that day. So everything's just auto-regulated in a sense. We also do a lot of velocity-based training with our kids, and a lot of that, I look at from a safety standpoint of if this kid's velocity goes down a certain area, goes down to a certain amount, then he needs to take weight off that bar. He's not working in the range we want him in anyway. So we're playing around now. We've used tendos in the past. We're playing around with the Bar Sensei now. I've got a couple of demo units with it, and really liked what I saw earlier today when we were using it.
One big part of our program is what we call weak links, and we try to look at ankles and knees and hips and all joints of the body, for the neck, the grip, the shoulder. And we really try to identify maybe some potential precautionary areas because of the sport they're choosing to play, and also depending on how the individual moves, as you imply with the dynamic FMS concept, and just paying attention to how individuals are moving. I mean, do me a favor and walk me through what are some areas of the body that you identify potentially as weak links? And it might be sport specific, or just speaking generally, depending on age ranges of the male or female athletes you get a chance to work with. And then how has that modified your program when you're trying to develop strength, range of motion, et cetera, in these areas?
You just hit a ton of them on the head with what we deal with the high school athlete. Our females are always going to have better mobility than our males do, and I think that's pretty standard across the board. But it's we see ankles, we see hips, we see weak glutes, weak hamstrings. It pretty much the whole posterior chain, posterior shoulder. So we spend a lot of time with that stuff, and we kind of, the way we do that in our tier is we'll build that into, like I said, I've got that 30 minutes. So we're going to try to add that, instead of them sitting around, we're going to try to add that active type of, they're going to be moving during their recovery. It's not going to be anything super stressful for them, but that could be a time that we can add some scap retractions in. So we may go on tier 1, it may be trap bar deadlift for that level, and then we may have a push-up plank and a band pull apart or scap retraction. That may be how we try to fit that stuff in. Because in a sense, we still have to move weight, we still have to get stronger, but we don't want to add strength on top of dysfunction. So whatever we can do, and we'll also use some of our day. There'll be times at the year that I just say, hey, we need some more of this at this point in time. So I may take a movement day and do more of that. But we're definitely I see a ton with ankles, hips, shoulders, and it really does become a little more as far as what the sport is. That's where you start to see. It depends on the injury history. Is kind of what we see there. I mean, we just try to move and assess that and know what a guy's got. If a guy's got a shoulder deal, we may stay away from certain exercises with him. That goes back to the earlier question. It's really dependent upon the individual.
One word in our field, or one term, phrase in our field that I borderline hate is the word core or core training. I mean, how do you define training the midsection of the body, and how are you addressing this area in your program? I mean, there are so many different things out there about training. We'll call it from the top of your knees all the way to the bottom of your pecs, your
Sure.
low back, your obliques. I mean, some people will include glutes and hamstrings and quads and potentially groins. I mean, I don't know what is even involved. What are we missing in non-core, or what is not a core exercise? I mean, we could go on for that for an hour or so. But as it relates to, let's call it the ab low back program, the midsection of the body, I mean, how are you addressing that in your program, and what kind of different ways are you trying to keep it interesting?
Sure. I think the best definition I ever heard of core training was what Mike Robertson told me Bill Hartman's was, and it was anything from the neck down. that ought to be core training, and that's kind of the philosophy we take. Like today was a big teaching day for a lot of our kids. So Turkish get up was because I had short classes today, even shorter than usual. So I had about 25 minutes with them. So the whole school worked Turkish get up today. When we're generally looking, we look at McGill's Big Three. If we're looking in that area of what most people think about, we stay away from flexion. That's fine as much as possible. We're going to train it pretty simple. Like I said, with most high school kids, it's going to be really simple. I mean, I don't think we should do anything fancy when a kid can't do a plank for more than 10 seconds. So, we're only going to go at the most 15, 20 seconds with a plank before we come down. But we've got kids who can barely get in the plank position. It was enlightening today watching some of our kids, and we use the Turkish get up as an assessment as well. When we're looking at our kids, you can tell a lot about a kid. I mean, it was amazing where these guys couldn't bridge, these guys couldn't do this or couldn't do that. Same thing with our females. So, yeah, I think that we try to emphasize core in everything we do, whether it's the way we strike the ground. I mean, there's just so many different areas of we work to try to help our kids feel that and engage their core. But yeah, I would totally agree. It's a very, very overblown term. They got, I always hear the same thing. Got to have more core strength. Well, don't we all? We're trying to train that in everything we do, for the most part. All of our core lifts, everything we do, and I think a lot of that is the way you teach your technique and the way you coach it.
In the pro and international level, you don't really have too many individuals that are multi-sport athletes. In the college environment, I was in there for a while, and we had a handful of them that I had to work around playing 2 different sports. But now that I get a chance to work in the high school and even the middle school sector in the private area, we have some individuals that are playing not only one sport, but they're also playing in 2 or 3 teams at the same time, and then they're doing off-season work for a team that they're going to be playing on in a couple of months. Walk me through this process of how you deal with multi-sport athletes, players that are playing on multiple teams. How are you addressing the conditioning needs and more importantly, the refueling and quote-unquote recovery needs of those individuals? I mean, how do you address that with the parents, the players, and really get the most out of your individuals you get a chance to work with?
Very, very difficult at times to convey what you want to convey, because our society thinks more is more is more is more. And unfortunately, in our field, we know that a lot of times less is more, and it's quality over quantity. But that's not quite the view that most of our parents have in this generation of what they should be doing with their children. They don't have a long-term athletic development approach to it's about now, it's about scholarship, it's about how I feel when I drive into my neighborhood. Do I feel better than the other person? About my kid, about what I'm doing. And, at times it's not healthy is what I've seen. Now, I'm not saying that's the majority, but that's becoming more and more normal. So I'm going to be interested to see where that goes long term. The way we deal with that is this. From the conditioning standpoint, I only condition them during the summer when I actually know what most of the kids communicate with me. We do a survey with them of what all they're doing outside of here. Our head of school is a very bright man that gets it, and that's one of the first things he implemented, because I'd expressed my concerns about how much our kids were doing. And so we do a survey and find out what they're doing. We ask them to be open and honest with it, so we know whether that kid's playing on, I'm leaving my baseball practice and I'm going to play with another baseball team right after that. So I'll literally, and I put this up when I spoke in Orlando at the NSCA, I put this kid's schedule up where it was pretty much booked from 7 a.m. with me until 9 that night, where he had finished with his personal baseball coach, and he had another personal strength coach on the side. And it was unbelievable. It was eye-opening for people. They're like, oh, my gosh, unbelievable. I mean, how does, the kid's getting no rest. He's getting no recovery. So we have tried to, like I said, implement the monitoring. We've been doing that mainly by hand, so I'm really excited about, getting the Kinduct format that I can enter this in there, and it's going to give me the kids enter the stuff in on their phone. It shoots it back to me, and depending upon what their answers are on the survey, it'll give me that, this guy, our quarterback, who's, man, he's in the red zone today, just as far as from what he, not quite like Omega Wave, but just, man, I need to take a look at where he's at and talk to him. So that's one of the things that we're doing. We ask them to be open and honest about that, and we do a ton of education with that. We're actually going to work to do some outreach stuff with bringing some people in to speak about that as well, to help our parents understand. I think there's starting to be more of a push. You're starting to hear, I know John Smoltz's speech in the Hall of Fame, hey, your kids need to play multiple sports. Your kids need to do other things. So it can be very difficult at times. I've found that my guys who play 3 sports here and don't do anything outside of here as far as club and AAU, stay healthy. It's usually my kids who focus on only, they may be playing one sport here and then they're playing club year-round. They stay injured year-round. It's unbelievable. And to me, it's like insanity, because I don't understand how a parent can't see that. And I don't understand how they can't give the kid time off, because they're taking time off anyway. They're just walking around in a boot. So I kind of get on my soapbox about that. So if I'm dealing with that at the beginning of the school year, I'm very open and honest, and I used to kind of stay away from this. But I would just say, hey, we are going to do what we do with you, because you guys are training. If you're training outside of here, and I think we have more of it on the female side than the male side, and it's certain sports. I would say more soccer. We'll get some in baseball from time to time. But I'm just open and honest to say we're going to do what we do here. If you're enrolled in my class, you're participating. All of our coaches, all of our athletic department, requires that these kids participate in our program. And for the most part, kids love participating in our program. They love what we do. It's going to be very isolated. But I tell them, hey, this is what we're going to do. I don't care to give it to you so you can give it to your trainer so they can fill in the gaps of wherever they see fit. And if they're good at their job, they'll be able to fill it in. If they're not, then maybe you need to reevaluate. If they tell you that you just squatted yesterday and they want to squat you again because that's what they've got on their plan, you probably need to look for a new person, or you probably need to ask for some extra time here. Because we tell our kids that, look, if you want extra time, you don't have to go outside of here. We'll meet you in the morning. We'll meet you after school. We'll meet you during a study hall, during a planning period. Whatever we've got to do to help you, if we feel like you need that, if we feel like you need the extra. But I'm dealing with these multi-sport athletes that are under so much stress. We're really working hard to manage their stress. It's unbelievable. That thing I said, we're dealing with a very, over-specialized, under-generalized athlete. So we try to stay very general with our stuff, very general, and we try to be very specific with what we do as far as how we teach it and how we coach it, so they're technically sound, whether it be in movement or whether it be in the weight room.
Anytime we talk to a coach, even a parent, recruiting coordinator, you're going to probably hear the word about power or explosion, and they might be even used interchangeably. I mean, what steps are you using to develop power and explosion in young athletes?
Once again, it depends on where they're at. Ultimately, the first thing is we've got to build some strength in them. We've got to have strength to convert to power. So that's going to be the number one thing with our kids is we're going to try to get them stronger first. And then from there, we're going to use pretty basic methods of jumps, plyometrics, depending on where they're at during the year. Once again, I'm dealing with a heavy multi-sport person, so I've always been resistant to get real heavy into plyometrics with them because of under the stress that they're under. But I like to do some jumps. I like to do some different things depending on where the time of the year they're in. Of course, all of our Olympic movements, and it goes back to that. The intent. Whether we're moving the bar fast, we're doing velocity-based training with what we do. Anything can be a power exercise if you do it with the right intent, in my opinion. So those are some of the ways in which we manipulate that. Could be med balls, could be whatever. You know how it is. There's a million different training modes. So for us, it just breaks down into where they're at in their chronological and physiological age and where they're at in their training age and what modes we're going to use at that point in time to get them there.
I've had many interns throughout my career. I've had a fair amount of staff members. I get a chance to speak all over the country, if not the world. And when I get a chance to meet new people, I generally just ask where their goal is so I kind of know where they're coming from. And one big thing people always say is, I want to become a pro strength coach or a head strength coach at the college level. And you're showing such success and making an unbelievable positive impact at the high school level. I mean, can you do me a favor and try to inspire or give somebody a reason to actually consider working at the high school level or even the middle school level to really make a positive impact on those individuals competing at that level?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I work as many hours as someone in college does or at the professional level. There's, I'm pretty much here from 5:30 in the morning till, 6:30, 7 at night, even on the off season. So if I'm not in football, I haven't been home before 8 in a long time. And you don't do something like that for the money. You do it for the passion and what you're doing for the kids. And the look on a kid's face when you watch them do something that they've never done before, and the impact that you can have at this level, I think is so much greater. Because most high school kids they may exude confidence, but it's a fake confidence. Most high school kids are not very confident. They're very unsure. It was an age that I remember myself. I was like, man, I was, voted the most popular kid at my high school, and I was like the most insecure guy there. And I think it's a very tough age, and I think it's just a chance that you can really help mold someone and make to me, I call it the ripple effect of if I affect that person, how do they affect everyone around them, whether it be from their family members to their friends to their kids to their grandkids one day. If you help instill a value system in them. I mean, these kids are gone from home if they're playing a sport, they're gone from home, 12, 13, 14 hours a day, and we're spending more time with them than their parents are. So you've got such a chance to make such an unbelievable impact on them, and I think that's what makes the high school level unique. I think the middle school level, I talked to my top assistant, and I mean, there may be a time when he moves to our middle school because I trust him the most, and it's so important. And I just think those formation years we can't let those slip by, because I think that's really a big part of where you start to become who you're going to be down the road, and you can make an impact on our world in a greater sense if we can get a hold of people young and teach them the right skills as far as who we want to be as people, the way we want to do things, and what we believe. So yeah, that for me, that's what it's all about, and I think that's the draw to high school for me, and it's unbelievable, man. The kids are awesome. I mean, they're really just. I had to miss practice this week for a thing that went on, and the kids are asking our head coach, where's Coach Eaves at? Where's Coach Eaves at? I mean, they really care. They really love you. Yeah, there's a respect level I think you get from the high school kid that. It's just unbelievable. And, when I talk to pro guys and I talk to other guys, man, those guys will talk more about their high school experiences than they will anything. So I think for the most part, it's a pretty enjoyable experience for most people in that time of their life. So, yeah, and I mean, I think from the profession standpoint, I mean, there's a ton of jobs to be had in high schools. If you think about how many pro teams are there, how many collegiate teams, well, man, there's more high schools in one state than those combined. So I think if you take the right steps and do what it takes to be able to get into a school system, or, you know, like me, I'm in the private school setting, I think it's really, really rewarding. It's really challenging. But at the same time, man, I go home satisfied every day with what I do. I mean, it's not work, and I mean there aren't enough hours in the day. I could do so much more.
Well, Fred, I know it's getting late in the afternoon here on our end on a Friday again, and I have to say thank you very much for taking some time out of your day. I know you've had a busy week. I know you've got to go through a couple things that are very unique, I'm sure emotionally, as well as family and team-oriented type stuff. So, again, man, I tip my cap to you as a professional in the field. And I thank you very much for your time. If somebody had a question about anything we discussed, and I'll be honest, man, I was pecking away with my right hand, my left hand's on the phone in my ear, just taking notes. So I'm sure someone's going to have some questions here as they go. How do they find out more information about what you have going on? I know you get a chance to speak at a bunch of places now, and maybe you have a website or whatever. I mean, walk me through that process of how they can connect you with you and find out more information about what you have going on.
Number one would be, you know, Facebook, Fred Eaves. I'm on there, and Twitter, it's just at Coach Eaves. And, you know, of course, my email here at BGA is fred.eaves@mybga.org. And those are probably the best ways to connect. And like I said, this is a busy time of the year, so I will email you back and tell you, hey, I'm going to get back to you. And sometimes I'm slow with that. Please be patient with me. Trying to get the school year off to a good start and make sure we're taking care of our kids first and doing the other stuff on the periphery. But yeah, I love to network, love to talk, love to chat, and try to help anyone any way I can.
Well, again, Fred, man, I appreciate you taking the time out of your day here. I know we did this kind of on a quick turnaround, but I've heard so many great things about you, and I just was very honored to have you on the phone here, my man, to get an opportunity to talk to you. It's been a privilege, and hopefully this is a launching pad for us to do many more things down the road.
Sure, definitely, man. Thank you for your time. I'm very honored to be on. I mean, it's an unbelievable list of guys that have been on your show, and you know, thanks again for asking me to be on. I'm honored, man. It was awesome.